Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ethan Bernard, and in today's video, we're going to be going over how to build Gauss. Gauss? I prefer to call him Gauss. The Warframe devs, I believe, call him Gauss, but I don't really care. Gauss sounds cooler to me. This guy's a speedster that made his way into Warframe somehow. You can see, you probably noticed him from his trailer where they showed off his Mach Rush ability, where you basically become the Flash temporarily. It's pretty nuts. We're going to go over all the abilities here real quick. He has some crazy abilities here, folks, and I'm really excited to share this build with you all. Before we get into the build, people, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you end up enjoying this video. The majority of people who watch these guides don't end up subscribing, so I'm going to start mentioning it at the beginning of the video now to see if you guys will consider doing so after you've watched the rest. Now, let's get in here to the build real quick. We did put 2 Forma on this Warframe, but before we get into all this nice stuff, we're going to go over the abilities very briefly. Now, you gotta know, his passive ability is a battery, okay? Gauss's battery kind of revolves around all these abilities, or I should say the abilities all revolve around the battery. The more you move, even if you're using an ability to move, the faster and the higher the battery charge gets. And the higher the battery charge, the more effective the abilities typically are. So let's start out. His one ability is Mach Rush. You burst into a sprint where you can knock over enemies and charge the battery at the same time. Crashing into a wall, a rock, any solid object will actually emit an explosion. And if you hold it down, you can just keep on going. This is what you see in the trailer when he's running on the Plains of Eidolon. He just keeps sprinting, and it's pretty crazy. Now, this will only be used for traversal in this build. You can knock enemies over with it if you run into them. That's fine. You can use the explosion as an offensive thing if you want to. It's not really going to help out at higher levels, but I do think that this is a very cool ability, and it is very helpful for getting around places very quickly. I just said very a lot, and yes, I realize that. His 2 ability is Kinetic Plating. You generate an armor plating around you that absorbs kinetic damage and turns it into energy, and it also makes it so you cannot be staggered or knocked down. Now, here's the thing. The damage resistance level is dependent on the battery charge level. So if your battery's at 100% charge, you'll have 100% damage reduction, and the further the charge goes down when you get shot, the lesser damage reduction you'll have as it continues going down. So if you don't keep moving, this damage reduction will get weak pretty quick when you're fighting higher level enemies. But with the build we've got here, folks, you won't have to worry about that much. Here's the ability that I'm not so sure about, and the one that we don't really focus on in our main build. Thermal Sunder. You siphon kinetic energy from the area and charge the battery while inflicting a cold status on nearby enemies. However, if you hold the button instead of press it, it reverses the process and it drains the battery and inflicts a heat status on enemies in a radius around you. We are not going to be focusing on this much because honestly this ability is not that useful in the higher levels. However, it will still be usable with this build. This is just not the one we're going to be focusing on. And finally, his ultimate ability is Redline. Gauss pushes battery beyond the red line, okay? This essentially lets the battery go above and beyond the 100% charge mark, and it makes all of the abilities supercharged, as well as increasing your fire rate, attack speed, reload speed, and holster rate into overdrive. When you pass the red line, bolts of arcing electricity dance around Gauss and explode in a mass when the ability is deactivated. It's pretty crazy, okay? This ability is pretty crazy, particularly this is kind of the one we're focusing on along with Kinetic Plating. Mach Rush is going to be used mainly for traversal, and we're not really focusing on Thermal Sunder here. Let's see what we got in the build here, folks. Again, 2 Forma is what we've got going, and we're going to start up here with the Aura and Exilus slots. For the Aura slot, in almost all Warframes, I either go with Energy Siphon or Corrosive Projection. Thankfully, it came with a dash polarity, so I can choose either of these. However, do note, if you want to go faster, the only way to edit the movement speed of Mach Rush is by editing the actual sprint speed of your Warframe. Strength or any of those will not have an effect on how fast you move during Mach Rush. So if you wanted that little extra bit of sprint speed, you could go with Sprint Boost, and we will show that here in a different build, but for now, I'm going to go with Energy Siphon because Gauss is a very active character. You'll constantly be activating abilities, and it's always nice to know that you have that little bit of energy creeping up in your back pocket for when you're going to need it. Now, that being said, in the Exilus spot, we're going to put Rush, because there's nothing else here that comes anywhere close to how useful this is. This gives you 30% more sprint speed, which again makes you faster in general, and it actually makes Mach Rush that much faster as well. So that's going to be put up here in the slot. Again, a dash polarity came there, so it was super, super useful. Okay, starting off in this build, we're going to be using the mods that I know a lot of people have at the start, and then we're going to explain the more complicated ones. So starting off, we're going to add continuity here for some ability duration. We're going to add Intensify for some ability strength. Now, the goal here on this build, folks, is to get duration and strength as maxed out as possible. Try not to go negative in efficiency, and we do not really care about the range stat at all. On Gauss, the only thing that range affects is the radius of thermal sunder and how far away enemies can be from you while you're running to knock them down. It's not that helpful. It affects the explosion radius at the end, which again, in higher levels is not going to matter at all. So range here is really not a priority. Duration and strength is what we're going for. So along with these two, we're going to be putting on Streamline for some added efficiency. I think that's all the efficiency we're putting into this build. And obviously Flow for extra energy, because that is a necessity. Now, we need some more ability strength. What do you guys think? So Augur Secrets is going right here, and we're going to be using Redirection as the health mod in this build, because he has a lot of shield, and it goes all the way up to over 1100 with just one shield mod here. Now, for the rest of this build, we're going to be using corrupted mods. I know some people don't like them, some people hate them. I hate to say it, folks, but these are kind of necessary for some of these builds. So, in the top slot here, we're going to be putting Transient Fortitude. Ethan, I thought you said we wanted as much duration as possible. That's true, but we also want strength, okay? And without hindering this build any further, this mod is a necessity to get both strength and duration over 200% at the same time. Now, how are we going to get a whole nother 100% on duration? Well, that would be with Narrow-Minded, folks. 99% ability duration and minus 66% range. So in the end of this build, we're going to be ending up with 201% duration, 130% efficiency, and 209% strength. Now, Arcanes here are always going to be the same in my builds, honestly, people. Arcane Barrier for anyone that has a high shield count, because if you get hit, you have a chance of that shield being completely restored. And Arcane Avenger, because most of the weapons I use are all crit-based. So these are the two Arcanes I usually put on these. I don't usually go super Warframe specific with Arcanes. If I make any more Warframe build guides in themselves, you'll probably see these Arcanes there as well. Alright, so it's going to be kind of hard for me to showcase these abilities in the simulacrum to you guys, but I'm going to do my best, okay? So here's the thing. Mach Rush, or Mach Rush, whatever the hell you want to call it, this is going to be used pretty strictly for traversal, folks. You can see here, you go pretty fast, especially now with the added sprint speed. You may not be going Volt Prime fast if you do a crazy strength build, but here's the thing. This can be used to knock down enemies. If you run into a group of enemies, everyone you run into will actually get knocked down. As long as they're close enough to you, you can knock everybody over just by running through this line of people. It's pretty hilarious, and Mach Rush is so fun to use, especially in the open world maps where you can just keep running. Now, kinetic plating is a different story, and I'm going to have to deactivate invincibility and turn on the enemies to show you guys this. So if we look here with kinetic plating, if we activate it, our battery is charged, and once they start shooting, it will start draining. However, you can see if I start running around, the shield will also start building up as they're draining it. And the closer this is to the red line at the top, the more damage reduction we have. So if we just keep running in a circle, they cannot do a whole lot to us. And if you're constantly moving like I am when I'm playing Warframe, this ability will be very helpful, and you shouldn't have that hard of a time getting your battery charged while you're taking damage, especially if you're using Mach Rush, because Mach Rush charges it even further. Now, we're going to pause these guys again because they're getting quite annoying, okay? But here's the thing. That's all there is to kinetic plating, but did you notice how long it lasts? When we activate it from scratch, it is a 60-second ability. So we only have to activate this once every minute, and as long as we're constantly moving, we're going to have very high damage reduction. Given, when you get into the higher levels, people can drain your shield pretty quickly because it will drain your battery the more you get hit. But again, as long as you're using Mac Rush on a decently consistent basis, either to move around or to just get some of that shield charge back, it's worth it, and it does its job, especially when you're just kind of playing Warframe casually. Now, Thermal Sunder is interesting. Let's go down here and test it on a couple different groups of enemies. They're all spread out now. I know it's kind of a weird configuration to test things in, but you'll get the idea. So, with 30% range or whatever the hell we have right now, this is how big the radius is going to be, and that radius is going to slowly decrease in size towards the center for a few seconds, and then for the remainder of it, it will just kind of stay the same size. This is the cold version of the ability, and this right here is the heat version of the ability. You can see the particle effect in the midair for the cold version and the particle effect coming out of the ground for the heat version. All you have to do for the cold version is tap the button, and for the heat version, you have to hold down the button. Now, as you can see on the battery, when we do the heat version, it actually takes some of our charge away, but when we do the cold version, it actually charges the battery up a bit. Now, if we're doing this to an enemy here, if we tap and do the cold version, you see they'll start taking some ice damage, they'll start getting hit by the effect, and it'll just keep going until the remainder of that. As long as they're still inside the radius, they will continue taking damage from the status effect. You can see here as well, on the hot version, it will just keep doing damage. It will slowly creep towards the center of the circle, and they will keep being affected by that fire effect, even when they exit the circle, because of course the fire status does do a little bit of damage over time. Again, this is not the ability we're focusing on for this, but it is a useful one if you're doing a defense or if you just have a room with a bunch of enemies in it. Place a couple circles around people. It doesn't help. It doesn't hurt. They stack, and it will do some sort of damage to enemies, even though with over 200% strength, it's barely touching mere level 30s. Now, here's where things get absolutely nuts. We're going to have Soma Prime out here for a second just to showcase how crazy this ability is, okay? Soma Prime in itself is a really crazy gun. Alright, it already fires really fast. You can kind of see it's doing its thing. Alright, it's doing its own thing. It fires pretty fast. But when we activate this ultimate, our movement speed, our gun's fire rate, our reload speed, our holster speed, everything, and our abilities are all going to get a buff. So let's activate this and see what happens. Bam, there it is. You can see another 60 seconds on the clock. Look at what our gun does. It makes our gun go Super Saiyan. Yes, this is Soma Prime. We can try it with a different weapon real quick. It's just absolutely nuts what this thing does. Let's get, like, Baza out for a second, alright? Baza shoots fast. So, yes, Baza shoots fast, but look at this. Once we activate this, it shoots the entire clip in, like, a second. It's insane. This ability's nuts. You can see we have the electric things flying around us. Once we get our battery charged here, if we run around with Mach Rush for a second, you'll be able to see what happens once we get that battery above the red line. It gives us even more thing to charge. You can see once it gets up to the top, we start going pretty crazy here, people. And you can see these little things flying around us will start doing damage to enemies. It does decent damage, nothing too crazy at higher levels. But once we activate this ability again, it will release them into an explosion of AoE around your character, doing even more decent damage. Now, you guys can test this build out for yourselves and let me know what you think, but there is another build we have to go over here that is just for shits and giggles. Pure speed! And when I say pure speed, I mean, hey, this build is made for Mach Rush itself. This is a build that maximizes efficiency and sprint speed. Okay, I don't know why I paused there while I was talking. Efficiency and sprint speed are maximized out in this build. We're using sprint boost for the Aura slot, rush in the Exilus slot as always, continuity for duration, flow for some more energy, streamline for efficiency, fleeting expertise for added efficiency, okay, redirection, vitality, and vigor, just because being healthy while you're running is always a good thing to be, and armored agility for even more sprint speed. Okay, so this build is literally just to make Mach Rush insane, and you can see here when we activate it, I know it's hard to do it in short bursts and show you guys this, but we are not draining energy very fast, and we are going very fast with this Mach Rush. Look at this, folks. This is some crazy speed It's pretty damn fun to use, and the other abilities, you can still use them. You know, you've got range on the Sunder now. You can do all your stuff. The Warframe's still very usable in every way, and Mach Rush is just absolutely nuts with this build. So that build is literally just to maximize your speed as Gauss, because you'll charge up your battery faster. You can run super, super fast with Mach Rush, and it's pretty fun. Now, if those corrupted mods scared you, okay, and you're not a fan of the pure speed build, I have made a basic build. Technically, the pure speed was a basic build, but this is even more basic. This is using what I would consider pretty basic mods in Warframe, maybe minus with the exception of Armored Agility. This is just a baseline. If you don't want to use any corrupted mods and you want to use some pretty basic mods, you probably don't even need the second Forma for this one. Build. Okay, you could probably pull this off with one Forma. Energy Siphon, because we always need to be using abilities. Rush for added sprint speed, as always. Intensify for ability strength. Continuity for ability duration. Flow to make your energy increase by 150%. Streamline for some efficiency. Vitality for some health. Armored Agility for a little bit of armor and sprint speed, because that's a good combo for this character. Stretch for some ability range, and Redirection for some shield capacity. So Redirection of Vitality will make this a very healthy frame with a health of 740 and a shield of 1110, as well as having every single stat above 100%. If you look at this, every single stat is above 100. We have 130% duration, 130% efficiency, 145% range, and 130% strength. This is a very overall build, people. Okay? It will do the job. It will do the job in pretty much anything. Okay? If you activate your 2 and your 4, they last 38 seconds each, which is a very decent thing. When you do your Mach Rush, you're running at a pretty decent speed. When you activate your 3, it has some pretty decent range. You can see this is just kind of an overall build, but it doesn't put anything really over the top. When I make the mainline builds, I like to put some things over the top. You can see here we're doing some pretty crazy pushback damage with the 3 here. But I just like to do everything a little over the top and focus on specific abilities rather than making everything good. But if you're just casually playing Warframe and you like to use all of the abilities of the frame, this basic build just puts everything above 100%. You aren't really giving anywhere at all. You know, you aren't taking away from anything. You have it all here. Anyway, guys, if you guys enjoyed this video, let me know down in the comments below. What do you think of Gauss? What builds do you plan on running on him? Did you like the builds I showed you? What are you running on him if you already have him? Let me know down in the comments, people. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave it a like and subscribe to the channel. It's free and it helps me out a lot. I'm live every weekday, 7 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. Come out, hang out, play some games with me. We'll have a damn good time doing it. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hey naysayers, how y'all been? It's been a minute, but I'm in it to win, and I ain't finished. This is the starting gun, and I'ma run it to the front until I'm #1, son. This is a rhythmic defibrillation, innovative old school to thrill the nation. I've been patiently waiting and building steam, but I'm back with the bounce like a tramp.